As you can see, I've started with a brand new part. We're going to use some slightly advanced building features with our extrudes, called a mid-plane extrude. We're also going to use a feature called mirror, which allows us, when we draw something symmetrical, to create one half of it and mirror it to the other side. So I'm going to actually start my sketch, this time on the right plane. Follow along, please. Make sure you start on the right plane and start your sketch. Make sure it says right plane here. And as I draw my initial rectangle, make sure you start from the origin and go up and to the right. I am going to ask for mask properties on this later on, so make sure your origin is in the proper spot. I'm going to make this 25 millimeters tall and 50 millimeters wide. Once you've done that, you can click Exit Sketch, go over to Features and Extrude Boss Base. Now, I'm going to zoom out a little bit because we're going to use a different style of extrude. This one is going from my drawing to the right, the full distance that is set right now at 10 millimeters. I'm going to change this direction 1 from blind to mid-plane. What you're doing now is you can see the blue outline is the place where you actually drew your rectangle. And it's going, in this case, since it's the distance that's set is 10 millimeters, it's going 5 millimeters this way and 5 millimeters that way. The distance I need is 150 millimeters. So that means it went 75 millimeters in this direction, 75 millimeters in this direction. And I'm going to go ahead and accept that. I have now the base of mine. And if I go to View, and I go to Hide Show and I turn on my origin, you'll notice the origin is in the middle of the edge. That's a dead giveaway. If you ever see something that you need to draw and the origin is in the center, they probably started with this mid-plane extrude. All right, so now I'm going to click on the top of this and start a sketch. If you'd like to, you can go ahead and use one of your display tools to turn to see the top. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to place, I'm going to start from a corner. I'm going to come down and make sure I'm coincident on an edge. That's what that yellow thing told me. And then the only dimension I should need is the fact that I want this to be 50 millimeters wide. Okay? That should make me fully defined, which it does. Next, I'm going to exit my sketch. I'm going to go to Features and I'm going to Extrude. If it didn't already switch to asymmetric, you can go ahead and pick that here so you can see what it's doing. Now this time I only want to go 50 millimeters up. So I get a little 50 by 50 by 50 cube, which is exactly what I want. I'm going to accept that. Now, on the top of my cube, I want to make a post that sticks up. So I'm going to click on it. And again, if you want to, I believe it's Control 5. Yes, Control 5 is what switches to the top view. Start my sketch, draw a circle. I'm going to go ahead and use Smart Dimensions to actually, I'm going to show you a different method. If I dimension this circle and then change the shape of it later, I'm going to have to come back and change those dimensions. If I want to always have my circle centered on this box, regardless of what size it is, here's a trick. I'm going to get a center line. That is under line. I'm going to find the midpoint here shown by this orange dot and draw straight across to the midpoint of the other line. By doing this, I now know that the exact center of this is the midpoint of this center line. So the only dimension I actually need to put on here is that I want this to be 20 millimeters in diameter. You'll notice I'm fully defined, and that is done through relationships. So again, the center line runs from the center of this to the center of this, and it keeps it centered here. So if I changed how thick it was, this line would just move because it would stay on the midpoint. If I changed how big it was in this direction, the line would get shorter, the midline would get, center line would get shorter, and this would stay in the center. So this is a way that you can align something in the middle, and if I change the size of this feature later on, all I have to do is maybe, if I have to, change the diameter of it. So that may help you. I'll show you another version of that when I cut a hole later on. So I'm going to go ahead and then hit Exit Sketch, Features, extrude boss base, go to my isometric view. For whatever reason, while you're extruding, the control number keys don't work. So, and then I'm going to make this, it's fine for it to just be 20 millimeters tall. And accept that. I'm also going to click this side, click a sketch, and put a circle on here. And this is what I am gonna just go ahead and use the dimensions for. I'm gonna bring it down 25. I am gonna bring it 20 millimeters from the inside edge, and I am going to make it 15 millimeters in diameter. This is fully defined. I'm gonna exit my sketch and go ahead and extrude cut. My selection for an extrude cut is normally a distance, but in this case, I want it to go through the entire thing. So I'm going to go ahead and drop this down and say through all. That should put that through all. And again, if I come back and change how wide this is, it won't matter. Now I've got features on here that I want on the other side too. This is where I can use mirror. So when I pick mirror, the first thing I have to do is I have to pick a mirror face or plane. Now I can't actually click on the right plane, which is what I need right now. I can drop this down though and find right plane in my list. Okay, so this is my mirror plane. You can see it already picked my extrude cut. It's trying to mirror the cut over here. Well, I'm going to need more than the cut. I'm going to need the extrude at the top. I'm also going to need the base extrude, which is the cube. So I've selected all three features in one mirror. So then when I accept it, I've now got two copies. Now that doesn't mean they're linked, however. So if I pivot around to this face here and start a sketch, I can make a box. I'm going to go ahead and dimension this box from the edge. So this is also where if I made a change later on, I don't just have this box dimensioned into a location. I have dimensioned it by relationship to all of the outside edges. So basically, I'm using a 10 millimeter border, essentially. If this box got wider, this feature that I'm making would also get wider. So I'm going to go ahead and exit that and extrude my cut. Now I already have some features in there, so I'm being careful not to go too deep. So I'm going to say 5 millimeters. After extruding my cut 5 millimeters, you'll notice I have this cavity here, but it is not on the other side because I didn't mirror that feature. I could have actually drawn this first and then mirrored everything else, not this, and gotten the same result. So just so you're aware, you can do things. Now, I know that's advanced versions of stuff we've done before. Now you have a layout, or now you have a block where we can do all sorts of new things. So the first thing I want to show you is fillet. Fillet allows you to round edges and corners. When I do this, the first type we're going to use is just your standard fillet. Okay? When I click on an edge, say this edge right here, it rounds that corner. By the way, if you don't see full preview, turn that on. That's really helpful. Now you can see that's a lot of rounding. So for the purpose of this, I'm going to change my radius down to 5 millimeters. So you can change whatever you need to change. You can also add multiple radii. So I can pick all three sides of this part and round all three sides of it. And when I select it, it rounds all three sides. I can also do very simple things like round the top of this so that the peg sticking up is better. Now if I round that and it's too round, I can edit it, come back here, and change 5 to 2 millimeters, because maybe that's more of what I'm looking for. I can also do it in areas where you have a corner that meets, and you want to round it and kind of blend these two surfaces. In this case, instead of removing material like I've done the last two fillets, when I hit this fillet, and I'll go ahead and leave it at 2 millimeters, I'll actually add material. It's adding material in. And if you're going to do this in some places, this actually makes this pin stronger it's a lot less likely to break off. I can also do it at the opening of a hole. So if I want to, I can fillet this edge right here, which again removes some material. Now I want to show you two advanced fillets. So when I do that, I'm going to use this one down here, the third one that's called a face fillet. So what I do is I can actually say, I want you to take this face and fillet it into this face. And I have a setting down here, and I can set this at whatever I need to. I can go ahead and do that. Now, could I have done that with a standard fillet? In this case, yes, but sometimes the face fillet, especially if the faces are complicated, will give you a better result doing it that way. And just so that we are clear, I can use mirror, and I can use my right plane again to mirror that fillet feature over again. You can decide which one's easier or harder. Sometimes you get it, and sometimes it doesn't want to work. So I'm going to keep moving on though, because I know this video will get long. The other one I want is a full round. What this does is it allows you to select three faces to make a full round fillet. The blue face is one of the sides. The purple one is the side that will actually go away. And then the pink one is the opposite side. So when you click those, you can see that I've selected to do this full round fillet. And when I do that, it does start to ever so slightly round away where my corner was, which is fine. Now another version of fillet is chamfer. Chamfer does the same thing as fillet, but instead of being round, it just cuts it off. So I can set it by distance and degrees. You can also change it so I can set it at a distance and a distance. There's some other advanced features, but for most times, we're either going to use distance and angle or distance. In this case, it's set at 3 millimeters, 45 degrees. As you practice, go ahead and mess with those. But just like we did with fillet, I want you to do a bunch of different types of chamfer. So I'm going to go ahead and do the bottom edge of this one, where you can see the difference between the chamfer on the bottom of the pin and the fillet. Okay? Do the same thing, picking an edge, picking some of these edges, maybe try the top of your full round chamfer. Go ahead and go around, and I want you to make sure that I have no unfilleted or unchamfered edges by the time you are done with this part.